This is the School Success Podcast, a podcast for school leaders to learn from other school leaders what's working and what's not, and to get inspiration and encouragement, as well as strategies to grow school enrollment, connect with families, retain teachers, recruit teachers, and everything in between. You guys are heroes, and I cannot thank you enough for pouring into this next generation that's coming behind us. My goal is you will take at least one thing away from every episode that you can take back to your school to make it better than it is right now. Please enjoy the School Success Podcast.
Time for school.
Hey School Success Makers! Today we're joined by my new friend Sarah, who is the founder and director of her hybrid school located on the Space Coast of Florida, which is where NASA and SpaceX regularly do their rocket launches. So they got that pretty much in their backyard, and they have this unique model of being a hybrid school. We dive into all of that, teacher retention, teacher recruitment, and a ton more. So please enjoy this next episode of the School Success Podcast. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the School Success Podcast. I'm your host, Mitchell Slater, joined by a new friend out of beautiful Satellite Beach, Florida, Miss Sarah Angrisani, who is the founder and director of Coastal Community School there in Florida. They have a very interesting and different model that I hadn't really heard of until I talked with her, which is the hybrid model. They do 3 days in person and then 2 in the homeschool world, which those that have listened to some of these, I was homeschooled my whole life, so I love that model and that they have that option. But we're going to dive into some things that their challenges and some things that are going awesome for them. But I don't want to take any thunder away from Miss Sarah, so I'm going to pass it off to her to introduce herself. So Sarah, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
We're going to have a blast today. I'm glad you're here. I always like to start with small talk in the beginning. So I usually like to say, hey, what do you like to do for fun? Obviously, you live right by the beach. I don't know if you're a huge beach fan, but what do you and your family like to do for fun?
Yes, so I have 2 children, 12 and 9. They both attend the school, and our family has been in this area for almost 15 years. And we live very close to the beach, and we enjoy that. But we discovered a few years ago that we love being actually on the water more. And so we are a boating family, and we love to be out. My son and my husband are avid fishermen. My daughter and I love to just be out there with them, enjoying it. And sometimes we'll throw a line out every now and then. So we enjoy that as well. And we just love living on the Space Coast. It's a really fun place to be. To have a lot of entertainment nearby. Orlando's an hour away, so you have all of that. And then you have the Space Center that is, 20, 30 minutes just north of us. And of course, we have all of the water sports and water activities. So it's a great place to raise kids.
Love it. I know you obviously got military base right next door. You got obviously space launches from Mr.
Yes.
Elon Musk and SpaceX regularly. So that's got to be pretty cool to have kids to be able to watch that growing up, I'm assuming, right?
Yes. We try to remind them often that this is not normal. Like, do not take it for granted, because it's very easy to do. Like, oh, there's another shuttle going off today, or, a rocket, I should say. Sorry, rocket. I will correct my terminology there. Yes. But it is fascinating every time. It's just as fascinating to see dolphins right next to you. It doesn't get old. Seeing dolphins doesn't get old. Seeing rockets doesn't get old. Seeing, the beauty of a sunset on the ocean or on the river, or the sunrise on the ocean, does not get old. So we definitely don't take it for granted.
And it still blows my mind that we can go to outer space. Like that whole, especially when you rewind back to, 30, 40 years ago, all that stuff, when we went to the moon, 1969 or whatever that it was. That's crazy to think that we can do that. And then when you see SpaceX and when those rockets land and they land on a freaking dime, I mean, just exactly where they told them to go. I'm like, this is incredible. Like, how is this even possible that we can do this?
Yes. And you actually feel when there's re-entry, there's a sonic boom. And so your sliding glass doors will shake a little bit. It kind of sounds like a little earthquake. And you're like, what was that? Oh, there's, a reentry, or, there's that was the sonic boom, and you hear the rumble, you hear it. It's really, really cool. And, it's been interesting too, as far as our student demographic and population. we, people make jokes about rocket scientists. And so we actually do have some parents that are rocket scientists, you're like, oh, I'm not a rocket scientist. Well, actually some can say they are. And we've had students do, of course, they have lots of access to learning about space. And so we've had students that have done interviews with, rocket scientists before for their projects. And so it's great access for them for that learning that often fascinates our youth, space and astronauts and the unknown. And now you're right, with Elon Musk, we have the Mars missions, and it's very fascinating for students, especially when they get to see it so up close.
Yeah, I know my almost 3-year-old, loves shuttle launches, rocket launches. We've watched the old shuttle launches on YouTube, and he is just mesmerized. We got him a little shuttle toy that he can play with. So he's into that and dinosaurs.
Yes,
So
great. Very
typical
typical
little kid.
Yes. Great.
So you started this school, I think, back in 2014. I think you got the start or the vision for this. Is that right?
That's correct. My son was going into kindergarten, and we were looking around at, much like all parents do, right? You consider all of your school options. I was raised all the way through, almost all the way through. One of my masters is through a private school, but I went through public school. My husband was privately educated through middle school. So we had lots of conversations in our home about what would best benefit our family and our children. And we started to look at private schools. And I had the opportunity to teach at a school like Coastal when we were living in Orlando early in our marriage. And it was a wonderful school, and it was hybrid. And I thought, wow, this is just the best of both worlds. Parents have some hand in the learning and the instruction without all the responsibility of planning. And teachers have this really nice schedule of teaching a few days a week and maybe getting a couple extra days to themselves for whatever they want to attend to. And so I did teach in the model for a year and got to know the benefits very well. And then we moved over from Orlando to the Space Coast and started our own family. And I kind of forgot about it for a few years until it was time to look at school options for our son. And we did not have anything like this on the Space Coast. And we just were really thinking, about what would it look like if we started something like this. So we, sent out some flyers just to friends that we knew. And I'm a lifelong educator. I was working in our local school district for many years. And so I was very familiar, and I had an itinerant position. So I was very familiar with what the pulse was on schools in Brevard County. I was very grateful to have that lens. And so I knew what some of the needs were. I knew what we had and what we offered and where different school offerings were. So I knew where we could fit in as far as in the school marketplace. And so we had an information meeting in May 2014, and people actually showed up and they came. And a lot of the people that were there that day were the founding families. They started the school. They came alongside of us, and they became the board members. They became, the best parent volunteers ever. Some of them became staff. And we started in August of 2014 with 15 students, and in kindergarten through 6th grade. And as of today, which actually we just finished our school year last week. So as of finishing up this school year, we ended with right around 125 students in VPK through 8th grade. So we have definitely experienced a lot of growth in the last 8 years. It's been wonderful.
Love this. And I love that you guys have grown. I love that you had this vision to start this, and it's obviously still working. So what I know, with that comes probably challenges, and I love to ask about some challenges that schools are up against so that our listeners can hear and go, oh, I have that challenge currently, and this is how they're handling that. So what are some challenges you guys are currently up against, and how are you combating those challenges you have?
So for those that don't know a lot about schools in Florida, Florida is one of the most choice-friendly states when it comes to school choice for parents. And what I mean by that is that there's a lot of liberty and freedom for how parents educate their children all across the spectrum, from homeschool to private school to public school to choice schools, everything in between. There's a lot of flexibility. And so the challenge, while that is an excellent freedom, and I am an advocate for school choice for parents, and so they move around a lot though, right? So one of the challenges right now that we're experiencing is not quite yet a mass exodus, but a lot of people they're moving around a lot, and they're changing schools a lot, and they're choosing different environments for their children. In particular, parents are putting their eyes more on private schools in a lot of cases, not all. I can't speak for all. And but parents are, based on different things happening in education, at least from our perspective, and based on the different climates in our country and education, it all affects education. So the challenge is that we are growing as a result. We are grateful to be growing. And so with that challenge comes space challenges, as far as not like outer space like we were talking about. I mean like classroom space. So, having the facilities available for all of these beautiful young souls that are coming to our campus, being able to accommodate and stay true to our vision of having smaller classes, having enough staff to accommodate all of the students, making sure that we are keeping up with that. And so we are quickly growing out of the space that we are currently renting. And so the board of directors is doing a great job of forecasting with the number of students based on the last 2 years, the trend after we came out of COVID. Everyone experienced kind of a dip in enrollment in private schools during COVID. And so coming out of that, we're naturally experiencing, we didn't just go back to our previous enrollment, we're exceeding it. And then next year, we're projected to have probably close to 150 or 160 students. So like I said, we just ended the year with 125, and we're looking at 150, possibly 160. And so how to accommodate that and to work with the space that we're currently in. So that's a challenge. And then of course I did mention that parents move around a lot. So you have children coming from schools and environments, homeschool, public school, and other private schools, who are attracted to this model, right? Everyone got a taste of hybrid schooling during COVID. It was not new to us. We were very well equipped when we had to, quote, move to hybrid learning. That's what we have been doing. And so it was not as much of a shock to us. So we have, a lot of more and more students coming from many different situations. And one of the challenges that we're encountering are those learning gaps that all schools are working with from COVID. Some of it is COVID related. And then some of it is just switching curriculums, switching schools, switching in general. So whatever a family, decides to make a big change in their schooling for their child, along with that, if they're not staying in the same district, right, in the same kind of curriculum, their child's going to experience challenges with that new curriculum and that new learning path that school has. So that's another challenge that we are looking to address with our increased staff. So definitely there's growth, what we call it, because it's in a private school, you're as much of a business as you are a school. And so we call it growing pains. So we definitely have growing pains would be the challenge. And there's several other ways that we experience those growing pains through those logistics and the physical space, as well as through the tending to the academic growth and of our students.
Okay. And I know that there's the challenges I've heard from other schools that I've interviewed across the country. One of the ones that comes to two that come up regularly: enrollment and teacher retention, teacher recruitment.
Yes.
So when I think of you guys, teacher recruitment, teacher retention, you guys have this very unique model of 3 days. Is it easy to get a teacher in? Is it easier to go, wait, you only have to work 3 days? Well, they're like, wait, I can't make enough though in those 3 days, so I need to have another job to do it. Is that kind of what has to happen? How does that work out?
Yes, Mitchell, you're spot on. It is very difficult to find teachers sometimes for this model for the reasons that you mentioned. Another challenge that we have is that when we hire, we have a lot of teachers that are interested in coming to our school that also have students that will attend. They want their students to attend. And we want their students to attend, of course, because we're so family oriented. Our three core components are faith, family, and academics. So we believe very strongly in the family unit. However, now the teacher is not teaching on Mondays and Fridays. They're not responsible for what's happening at home other than providing the lesson plans. But it goes without saying that parents will need that teacher sometimes on those home instruction days to clarify, to correct, are we doing this right? Do I have the right page? Just some things get lost in translation or sent home incorrectly. Most of the time not. Most of the time everything is clear, but there are hiccups sometimes in the process of going between home and school. And so that teacher has to learn, if they have children that are also in school, they're trying to balance teaching their own students at home while also trying to attend to the needs of their class. So you can imagine if you're an educator and you're listening to this, the challenge that is, well, administrators definitely know this challenge of trying to tend to your own family while tending to your school family. And they definitely, there's always tension between those two, always. And so you're right. And then of course, you're right, financially, they're not compensated as well as they would be if they were working 5 days a week. And we work really hard to compensate our teachers, of course, the best that we can. We do give them some compensation for some hours that we acknowledge they're going to be responding to needs on the days they're not in the building. But then we also try to boost morale with them. We have those, what we call fringe benefits in business, whether it's bonus, we've done bonuses. We just did a really, really nice staff lunch for the end of the year. We're still small enough, we have a staff of, I think the total invite was 28 people, right? So we're still small enough where we can bring them to a nicer restaurant and say, order a good lunch, and we have time together. So, community is our middle name. I say that a lot, and it's whether you're building community among the families or the staff. So it's very important. But you're right. there is a challenge of trying to. So then you have this teacher who's also a parent, right? And then their tuition is their salary is, a lot of it is going towards that tuition, and so we work with that too. Our teachers do get tuition discounts for their students to be there, and so we're always trying to work and improve on that as well. We really want to be able to recruit the best that we can, and so how to create a really attractive benefits package, and I say that in quotes because all our teachers are part-time, so they don't have a typical benefits, but to make it a very appealing position for them can be challenging. So I always used to say some of our best employees, and I don't mean by best in performance, I mean most available, best in availability, have taught for a very long time, which is advantageous to us, but they're not quite, they either don't want to finish their career in a traditional sense, or they've just retired, but they want to keep working. And so they've retired from maybe the public school system, or they've just retired, and they want to keep contributing to education, and they see that doing it 3 days a week is very feasible and very attractive to them. So that's kind of the demographic that we typically attract is right there, which again, it benefits us because they bring a lot of experience and wisdom with them. So our students really are the ones that benefit the most.
Good. Well, the last one I thought of as a challenge that before we jump into the next section was picture, okay, I love this model. I do really love the model, how it works, but then I think of the families who can really capitalize on it, So I got, okay, let's say, and I'm maybe curious if this is something you guys have currently in the school, that both parents work, and do they put them in care on Monday and Friday in the mornings, and then they get off in the afternoon and do school at night with the student? Or how does that dynamic work with families who are like, okay, Monday, Friday, I need to be home, and maybe the people only work 3 days in the week, so they can homeschool their kids on Monday, Friday. So kind of how does that look?
I think you bring up a great point, because one of the dynamics that has changed in our school, which was typically a single income earning family, right? So either the father or the mother was the primary income earner, and then one parent was staying home. So that's very, very typical of our parent population. However, with the increase of being able to work at home, more and more people we came out of COVID, more people are working at home, and they're staying at home because the company's going, wow, this is working really well for us. We're going to keep you at home. So we now have several parents who are trying to juggle working at home. And I think a lot of parents and educators can sympathize with this, trying to work at home while educating your child. Does that sound familiar? And so, we have really strong conversations, very transparent conversations with families who are going to attempt to do that. Because there's one of the phrases I use with our parents often when we're doing their orientation and their training, because we orient our parents as much as we orient our teachers, because they're going to be teaching too. And I always say, you have to fit your day into school. Don't try to fit school into your day, because it will go awry. You have to make school the priority, right? You have to picture this as this is your job today. You are working as the teacher for your child. I don't want to make it sound like this, strict job, that they've been hired for, but they do have a responsibility, not so much a job as a responsibility to partake in the education of their child. And so if there are going to be distractions, they have to account for that. So a lot of our parents are the demographics of our parents. Like I said, one parent is home, or they have very flexible schedules, such as they're entrepreneurs, they have their own businesses. We've had moms before that are nurses or in the medical field, so they have a very flexible schedule, and they can work around their student schedule. And there's a lot of the engineering industry and military where they have what's called a 980 schedule, and so they're off every other Friday. So there's several corporations in town that have their employees on that schedule. My husband happens to be one of them. So every other Friday, guess what he's doing? Fishing with my son. So my son, they go out, they get up really early on a Friday, which is a school day, but they go out, they get some fishing time in, they come back around lunchtime, maybe a little later in the afternoon, depending on what the bite is like, right? And so if the biting's good, they come back a little later. Maybe they bring dinner, which was also a bonus. But if they get home, right, this is sounding very like out in the savannah, my husband goes out and fishes. No, but they come back, and then my son finishes his work that afternoon, or he does it on Saturday. So the reason that we have the home instruction days on Friday and Monday is so that families have that flexibility. If they want to do all their schooling on Saturday, because they had something going on Friday, or maybe they're going away for the weekend, and so they're going to finish school on Monday, and they have to look ahead. They have to plan and look ahead, and they decide what's going to work for their family. And so we love that kind of flexibility that they have. And the parents have access to the lesson plans for the whole week, not just the days their kids are at home. So they can look and see what were they doing the day before, what are they doing in class the day they get back. So the parents have this wonderful perspective of how do we make this work at home to set them up for success when they're back in school on Tuesday. So it works really well.
I love it. I love that flexibility, because I know that was my favorite parts of being homeschooled my whole life, was when we got to my mom would sometimes do it, but when I got to like middle school, high school, I would double up on a day so I could go do something with a friend of mine the next day all day long. And people would be like, how are you able to do that? I was like, I'm homeschooled. Like, it was so cool. I just loved I could double up everything on a day and then, take the whole day off, or a long weekend, like you mentioned. So love the homeschool model very much that you guys have a part of your school. Now, the next part I always love to talk about, the part where you get to brag about your school, tell us what's going really awesome. So if you had to pick a couple things, you're like, hey, this is going really good, we're really proud of this as a school, what would those be?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, that community is our middle name, Coastal Community School. And so in our three core pillars are faith, family, and academics. And so we work really hard to incorporate the parents and the families. We have during the school week, we have parent partners in the classroom. That's what they're called when they're volunteering on the campus. And volunteering is required to kind of keep this machine running. In the work coming in from home and going back out to the home on Thursdays. So we have parent partners. We have lots of community events. And most recently, I've had so many conversations with parents that are interested in coming to our school, who are coming from schools that are putting up gates and fences and locking things down and not wanting parents there and holding parents at an arm's length. And, parents, I know a lot of parents, because I talk to them, are feeling less and less welcome in the school environment. And here we are welcoming parents. Come have lunch with your student, sign in and get a badge. Yes. We still have those traditional school procedures, but we welcome you and we want you to be part of this community. We've had so many beautiful relationships built at the school. There's families that aren't even at the school anymore because their children have aged out or for different reasons. And those families are still traveling together to this day. They're still doing things together. They keep in touch. And it's because of all the efforts that I think we've made to build community and make it intentional, right? And it starts in that classroom level, and then it's a school-wide effort. So, for example, we do chapel as a whole school once a month. We do different events as a school several times a year, such as community service. So we'll do, food drives and Operation Christmas Child, and we'll do several different events as a school and come together for those. And then, of course, there's the greater community with families where we'll go camping. We have a couple weekends a year where not everyone can make it, but if you can, come camping. A bunch of families are going camping, or, we're going to rent a pavilion at the beach and do a beach day or a beach, evening or a bonfire. So we do that well, I have to say. I think a big highlight, I think, of what we do well is, and this is definitely from an administrative perspective, is that we try to set the scene up well. We are very different. And we want to be different, but we have to make sure that people understand what they're signing up for. And so we have a really thorough enrollment process. We expect a lot of our families as they are enrolling and applying for our school. Our application is a little more rigorous than a typical school, elementary and middle school. But it's important for our parents to understand our core concept and philosophy and vision and mission, so that there's not a lot of misunderstanding, right? So, for example, the home days are not just homework. The kids aren't just sent home with a bunch of work to do on the home days. That the parents have an active role in instruction. And so I think we also do that pretty well. Not pretty well. I think we do it very well. And so communication, right? We say that I always tell parents that the most successful parents and staff are the ones who are connected and communicating. And so we try to remind them of that. Stay connected, stay communicating. And that goes both ways, right? It's our responsibility as a school to stay connected and communicating, and it's the responsibility of the families to do the same, so that we can all remember that our most important stakeholder is that student. And we can forget that sometimes, right? We can forget these sweet little souls that are the ones that we're educating, and we make all these big adult decisions, and we forget who the real customer is, right? Especially in private school, right? You have paying customers, and that child has got to stay at the forefront. So we try to do that each year. So yeah, those are just a couple of things. I think we pick a theme each year as a school, kind of like a target word, or it's a phrase or a verse or a target word that really keeps us focused too as a community. And it unifies us. So having things that unify us, I feel like, is something we do well also. And trying to just, as we grow our children, not just from grade to grade, but we grow them for life. And that is one of our, a huge part of our vision, is that we are raising up 21st century citizens, not just children that are going to maybe go off to college or another vocation, that we truly are developing kids of character and kids that are going to enter a workplace someday, even beyond college. So we want to develop the whole child.
I love that. And it's so good and so incredibly important. So I love what you guys are doing. And I know you've already shared some good tidbits and some good advice, but as we go into the last question, as we close everything out, if you were to leave everybody who's listening with a piece of advice that you'd want to share with any other school leaders, what would Sarah say to everybody?
Oh, there's so many things. Like I already mentioned, right? Communication and connectedness. I already mentioned that, to remember the students, right? Remember who our main customers are. I mentioned that. Another thing that I really believe is that meaningful training matters. Our teachers, have this world of virtual professional development and trainings, and we could expect our teachers to spend a lot of time doing a lot of different training. So it just has to be meaningful. Like, I'm really big. I don't like wasting people's time. So if we have a parent meeting, if we have a teacher meeting, I want to make it meaningful. And I think we can forget that, right? We can just go through the motions. We have to have a staff meeting. We have, right? Not let's get away from what we have to. Let's do, what do we get to do, right? We get to develop and train our staff in this way, or we get to become stronger in this area. So meaningful training matters. As well as personal development. I was meeting with a teacher today, going over her review, and they had to do a self-reflection. And the teacher said, I really like this exercise, right? Because it's not me telling her, here's what you have to improve on. She's really looking back at that year and thinking, wow, I want to be better. People want to be better, right? They want to be the best for their students. And so she was really appreciative of that exercise. And honestly, something that I learned a long time ago, and this kind of goes along with it, is, putting people, by that I mean your staff and your teachers, in a place where they're passionate. And I've made a lot of mistakes. I have things that I'm proud of, but one mistake that I've made over the years, just out of desperation, is putting people in a grade level, putting a staff person in a grade level that maybe they're not comfortable in, that maybe stretches them, and then it just doesn't go well. So I had moved our second grade teacher. I needed someone in like the fifth, sixth combined class for a season, and I kind of moved her over there, and I thought, it's still elementary, she'll be great, right? And she was so out of her comfort zone, and it went well. It wasn't terrible, but it definitely didn't go as well as it does when she's in second grade. And she went back into second grade and has thrived even more as a second grade teacher, because she saw, like, well, that's what I don't want to do. I definitely want to stay here. Right? So she's like, I'm going to prove my worth in second grade. And she's actually our founding teacher, our standing founding teacher. We still have one, and she does a phenomenal job in second grade. So that is my advice. Like, keep people, read people well, get to know them, and put them in their purpose and in their gifting, because they will perform way better, doing what they love to do versus what we want them to do or think that they can do. Now, I have also challenged some staff people. I've noticed giftings in them that maybe they didn't notice in themselves, and have asked them to step into roles that they would never have thought to go into. And, and this is where we get into promotion planning, and, where we're looking at who's going to be coming up as the next leaders and into the next different roles in the organization. And so just looking out for those giftings and starting small and saying, hey, you want to try to do this little piece, right? And doing stipend pay for teachers to do special projects that include, like, if you see someone who's gifted administratively and you're thinking, give them some stipend work to do some special projects, and give them those opportunities to grow when it's not the biggest responsibility, right? Give them small responsibilities, like with kids. We do this with kids, right? We give them a little bit of rope, a little more rope, right? We do the same thing with our staff. We're real big on, we want our teachers and staff and families to all benefit from this model, and we want them to thrive and grow. So yes, our kids are growing, but so are we as adults. And so we want everyone to always know that they're lifelong learners, that their time is valued, that they are appreciated, and that their purpose and their gifting and their passion matters.
So good. You could write a book on that one. It's a good job, Sarah. It has been an absolute pleasure to interview you and hear your story, hear about what you guys are doing at your school. And it sounds like things are going amazing with you guys, and you're going to grow. Obviously, it looks like you're going to have even more students this fall. So wishing you and your whole staff nothing but the best as you guys continue to grow and educate that next generation. So thank you for all you do and for starting that school in the beginnings 8 years ago. And keep doing what you're doing. You're doing awesome, Sarah.
Thanks. You as well. Thank you, Mitchell.
Well, another huge shout out and a thank you to Sarah for taking time and being on the podcast today. I loved our chat. I'm wishing her and her school nothing but the best as they continue to grow and educate the next generation. I love the part where she mentioned about community being their middle name and how that is a huge focus for them. And I'm hoping that resonated with you. Maybe your school is trying to build more of a community around itself, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And as always, maybe that's the piece or another piece that we talked about. My goal is that you take at least one thing from today's podcast that you can take back to your school to make it better than it is right now. I hope your school's going awesome, but if you're needing help growing enrollment or finding ways to connect better with your families, I'd love you to reach out to us. You can find us online, schoolsuccessmakers.com. That's schoolsuccessmakers.com. We love working with schools. We've helped schools completely restructure their branding and new websites, helping them rank online so people actually find them when people are searching for schools, or helping them actually grow enrollment so they can have more funding to be able to pay teachers more or do different things that they've been hoping to do. They just didn't have the funds to be able to do so. Love working with schools because we love what you guys are doing. You guys are heroes, and I just love and appreciate all that you're doing to educate the next generation that's coming behind us. And if that's not an option for you, we have an amazing, amazing private Facebook community that I would love you to be a part of. It's called School Success Makers. So please look that up on Facebook and join. It's just for school leaders. I'm in there personally, so I'd love to see you in there as well. School Success Makers on Facebook. We'll be here next week with another amazing guest as usual on the School Success Podcast. We'll see you then.